What's up, guys, and welcome to Gamescript. We're looking at the Seattle Seahawks versus the Washington Commanders for Sunday Night Football, and it's a game where Terry McLaurin is most likely to be out. And how will that affect how we build our lineups on the Washington side? I'll get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. We got the Seattle Seahawks versus the Washington Commanders for Sunday Night Football. We're looking at a 48.5-point total with Seattle as 3-point favorites in this one. And Washington has been struggling this season. We haven't seen the same Jayden Daniels as we did last season. It's kind of like almost like a CJ Stroud situation like we saw with his second year, except Jayden Daniels has been hurt for most of this year, and we've seen a lot more Marcus Mariota, it seems. But we got Jayden Daniels healthy tonight, but Terry McLaurin cannot stay healthy, and he held out during the offseason, and he has missed a lot of the season with nagging like hamstring injuries. I believe it's a hamstring injury that he's dealing with now, and part of the reason why I don't draft these guys in best ball that hold out in the offseason that long and throughout the basically entire training camp is because they get into these situations where they either get hurt or they're rusty and they just can't get in sync for a huge part of the season. So Terry McLaurin looking like he's going to be out for this one. We got Deebo Samuel still good to go, and we have a bunch of cheap options for Washington that we can dig into. Before we start getting into this matchup, though, make sure to hit that like button, get me to 70 likes so you can put my favorite picks in the comment section once we get closer to lock, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. I am getting close to 2,300 subscribers. I need about 60 more to get there, so if you guys can hit the subscribe, that'd be great. You want to subscribe to get alerts for when all the content goes up and when all the general shows that I put out for game scripts for these one-game slates or showdown slates. And I put out shows for the main slate weekly, but I also do these 2-game slates when they come about. And we got one coming up, big one coming up with Thanksgiving here soon. You also want to subscribe to get access to the secret weapon that's coming out in about a week. Going to give free beta preview to all my YouTube subscribers, so you want to be subscribed to access that. So we're about 60 subscribes away from 2,300 on top of that, so help me out with getting there. I want to get there by the end of this week. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at the setup here. You see the underdog promo on my page. Use the promo code SEEK, SEEK. Play $5 to get a free $100 in bonus cash from Underdog. You can also see BetMGM. Use the promo code there, Heater1500, and you're going to get up to $1,500 risk-free bet. So your first bet, if you bet 200 and you lose 200, they're going to give you $200 in bonus bets. So take advantage of those free money situations, and let's get into this matchup. We'll take a look first at the injuries. Looking at the Washington Commanders, you can see Terry McLaurin is looks like he's officially out now. We got Laramie Tunsil is questionable on the offensive line. We got Noah Brown out, obviously, and Eckler, his season is over. So all sorts of injuries on the offense, but Terry McLaurin obviously going to be the most significant there. On the defense, we're looking at Armstrong is on IR. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is also on IR. We got Drake Jaxon and Dietrich Wise on IR for the right side of the defensive end. So the defensive ends are really banged up. We're down to one guy on each side. The rest of them are all on IR. As far as the rest of it, we're looking at Will Harris on IR for the safeties. And, pretty just banged up situation in general for Washington. But we do have Jayden McDaniels healthy at least. And Deebo Samuel doesn't look like he has an injury designation. So let's go over to Seattle. We got a significant one in Seattle as well. Cooper Kupp is questionable. We got to wait and see what his status is going to be. Jake Bobo and Drake Young are out. So all these guys being out and Cooper Kupp being questionable is going to be some good news for Torrey Horton, another cheap guy on Seattle who's been targeted a decent amount under man coverage, which is what Washington runs a lot of. Looking at the defense, looking at the Julian Love, AJ Finley out, Riley Mills out, Jonathan Hankins out. But for the most part, most of the guys that have been hurt for Seattle that made them, like a target a couple weeks ago when we targeted the matchup. Can't remember who they faced, but there was a good matchup there against Seattle. I think it was Tampa Bay, and ended up being like a good setup for us because half of Seattle's defense was on IR, or not on IR, but they were out that week, and people were thinking that it was going to be the usual tough Seattle defense. It ended up going into more of a shootout situation. We got Witherspoon is healthy this week. Reek Woolen, both those guys are healthy. Most of the guys that have been questionable or having injury designations seem like they're back. We're still missing like a few guys to IR or out this week, but for the most part, it's in a better shape than we have seen recently with Seattle. All right, so let's go back over to DraftKings. Take a look at the players. Smith-Njigba. He is one of the top targets during man coverage, but honestly, he's the top target just in general. So we're looking at, let's see, I'll tell you exactly how many points per route run he gets here according to PFF. With, let's see, man coverage, the top targets are Smith-Njigba. He's earning 0.82 fantasy points per route run. Number 2 would be Cooper Kupp, but obviously he's looking like he's hurt and might not go this week. Torrey Horton's number 3 on that list, earning 0.46 DraftKings points or fantasy points per route run. So Torrey Horton and Smith-Njigba both set up nicely in this matchup. On top of that, Washington's been giving up 22.7 DraftKings points a game to wideouts and 18.9 DraftKings points a game to slots. So they've been one of the worst defenses in the league against receivers, and that sets them up nicely. Smith-Njigba kind of goes without saying. Look at all the points that he scores on a weekly basis. He's kind of a no-brainer. They're coming off a bye week, so that might have automatically teed up. Let's see, where's he at? Torrey Horton for a decent game this week. Coming off a bye week, these rookies tend to get a bump, and Torrey Horton's been pretty good this season. He's had a few weeks over double-digit DraftKings points. I've profiled him in the offseason as a guy that had a potential to break out, and now he's going to get an opportunity to have a bigger role if Cooper Kupp is out this week against Washington, especially if Washington can make this game competitive. Let's see. We're looking at Jayden Daniels. You can see when he's healthy, he has really only had 2 weeks over 20 DraftKings points. The other weeks have been, down weeks for Jayden Daniels. But he's in a Seattle matchup where Seattle's giving up 17 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. That's kind of a middling matchup. But Jayden Daniels, if we see him on his, at his best, we could see a lot of upside for Daniels. The thing is he's coming off a hamstring injury. So It's going to put his mobility into question. So we got to keep an eye on that. Sam Darnold, in the games where he's pushed, like this is the Tampa Bay game I was talking about. They ended up losing that one 38-35. He ended up scoring 31 points in that game, though, 31 DraftKings points. That's his highest output of the season. For the most part, they don't want to pass the ball a ton. So he's kind of been muted with his performances. He had one other one over 20 DraftKings points. But for the most part, we see under 20 DraftKings points with Sam Darnold. But if Jayden Daniels is able to push him in this one, then we could see some value here in Sam Darnold. At 10-6, he's an expensive quarterback, though. Mariota, let's see, Deebo Samuel, couple weeks on the downside, but for the most part, he's been pretty good. Let's take a look at what his snap counts have been. He came off of an injury, and he had a 74% snap count after missing week 7, 72, 78, 86. So he's been hovering kind of in that 80% range. So if he's at full health, then we could get some value out of Deebo Samuel tonight. Let's take a look at some of these other guys. Now we're looking at Terry McLaurin out. He was in last week. So when he was out, the last time he was out, we saw Jalen Lane got 69% snap count. Luke McCaffrey was at 54. Chris Moore was at 79. Chris Moore was the direct replacement for Terry McLaurin, but you saw these other dudes getting a lot of action too. So, we could see a situation here where we have so much value on the slate that we're able to put one of these expensive guys in the captain spot and not worry so much about being high owned if we can get some differentiation with the flex spots in our lineup, depending on which direction people decide to go with these cheap guys. So looking at Kenneth Walker has been in a timeshare all season, and it's affected his performance. I think these 2 weeks where he had 21 and 18 is when Zach Charbonnet was hurt or out of those games. Otherwise, we see him under double-digit points in 3 straight, including 2 games where they won relatively handily by like a touchdown or more. So Kenneth Walker is in need of breaking one out in between the 20s to score a touchdown in order to have any value. You can see he's not really getting a lot of work in the passing game. He's got about a target or 2 per game for the last 7 weeks or so, or 6 weeks. On top of that, most of the high leverage touches are going to Zach Charbonnet. So we see Charbonnet have a much higher, points per game here, 19.5. He's had several weeks over double-digit points, but 7K, that's still expensive for a guy who might score 10 points for us. But this is a showdown slate, so we're really looking for these guys that can get us into those double-digit points. But Charbonnet, cheaper than Kenneth Walker. I would think, though, that if Walker comes in at cheap ownership, then he's a guy to consider because we never know when he's going to be able to break off, like a 30-yard touchdown or something like that and get a touchdown outside the 20s. So, he could be in play. The problem is Washington's been pretty good against the run. They're only giving up 22 DraftKings points, but it is a middling matchup for him. Back to Sam Darnold, Washington's been giving up 20 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback, by the way. So Charbonnet and Walker could be interesting. If we think that they're going to get in the red zone a lot, and maybe Charbonnet runs in a couple cheap ones, like we could get Charbonnet maybe in that captain spot in this matchup. Otherwise, we could try to use Walker in the captain spot in this one, but I tend to stay away from those running backs. I think we can find lower owned captains if we want to go in that direction. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, really nothing since that 31-point week. In week 5, we've had 6.8, 4.2, and 2.5 points. Kind of MIA in the passing game, apart from a couple games with a couple targets. Primarily, that role's been going to McNichols, who had a big week last week for a showdown slate. He was on the Monday night game, and he had those 11.8 DraftKings points. I believe that got him in the optimal. He was at 3,400 for that game. So McNichols definitely in play in this one. And I had a Rich Rebar nugget for this one, I believe. Running backs have a 26.1% of the receptions against Seattle, which is the third highest in the league, while they are allowing a league high 13.6 receiving points per game to backfield. So thank you, Rich Rebar, sharp football analysis for that nugget. And that puts Jeremy McNichols significantly in play, especially down some of these receiving weapons and facing a weak Seattle defense against pass catching backs. So McNichols could play a significant role in this game. All right, let's take a look at some more of these guys. We'll skip past. Oh, here we go. Zach Ertz. Ertz is in a good situation too. Now, tight ends on both sides of this game are in good situations. Seattle's been giving up 15.6 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. On the other side, Washington's been giving up 14.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. Washington just in general has been giving up fantasy points to every position basically. So it's kind of a pick your poison type of situation there. We might want to lean more towards who does better in man coverage, and that tends to be Smith-Njigba and what's his face, Torrey Horton. So moving on to the next guy. Let's see. We got Luke McCaffrey. McCaffrey's been good when he's given his opportunities, and without Terry McLaurin in this week, we could see more targets for him. I'd like to see him get over 3 targets, though. McCaffrey's been pretty good when he's had his opportunities. I'm surprised they're not using him more. But, maybe we see that this week with Daniels back in the lineup. And, maybe we see one of these double-digit point weeks. 5,400 is pretty expensive for Luke McCaffrey, but, he's capable of upside. We got both these kickers in play. Myers has had a bunch of double-digit weeks. He's always a good guy to start for us. And let's see. On the Commanders side, we got Gay, who, hasn't done as well. I assume that they go for it on fourth a lot on the Commanders side, but he's had an 18-point and a 14-point week. So, maybe we see something out of Gay this week with a healthy Seattle defense. Maybe they stall out in the red zone and they don't want to risk it without Terry McLaurin in the lineup. So Seattle's D, healthy will be in play. They've had 1, 2, 3, 4. They've had 4 double-digit point weeks. So they've been a good fantasy defense for us. So, Seattle will be in play tonight for us. Maybe people be afraid of using Seattle against Jayden Daniels based on what Jayden Daniels did last year without considering what he's doing this year. Jalen Lane, 6 targets a couple weeks ago. Otherwise, he's had 2 or 3 targets. But, Jalen Lane will be in play for us with Terry McLaurin out as well, like salary relief option for us. Commanders D. We've had a couple weeks over double-digit points for these guys. For the most part, though, this is a more explosive offense. I don't really like using the defenses versus these teams with guys like Smith-Njigba on it, but they are playing at home and they are dogs in this one. So, the home dogs the defenses tend to show up in those matchups and help to put them over the top. Let's see. Moore, I believe I did not go over him. He had a 13.6 week a couple weeks ago. I think Daniels was the quarterback in that game and targeted him 5 times. He had 3 receptions, 46 yards, and a touchdown. But, without McLaurin in the lineup, Chris Moore has stepped up, and he's looked actually pretty good when he's had his opportunities. Horton I talked about. Barner is the go-to guy when they get in the red zone. He gets the most end zone targets, and you can see he's had some pretty big weeks, and he's got a good matchup this week. 12.2 points, 24.3, 10 DraftKings points. All those are touchdown linked. So, we really need Barner to score a touchdown. But like I said, this is a good matchup for tight ends in this one. And Barner is definitely going to be in play. We've been hot with these tight ends in these showdown slates, and it looks like we're going to get another opportunity this week with a lot of these tight ends. Arroyo, the rookie, I believe he's a rookie, and he is, poaching some of these targets away from Barner. I guessing that he's between the 20s, but we see 5, 2, 1, 4, 3 for his target amounts, but he hasn't really done anything from a fantasy point perspective. We see 3, 3, 7, 3, 1, 3, 2. So they do target their tight ends a decent amount in Seattle. So something to keep in mind with these guys when we're building our lineups. Let's take a look at Robbie Chosen. He had his opportunity last week, 4 for 4 on targets, 36 yards. Pretty good performance there. He was playing with Mariota, I believe, in the last game that they played. Let's see, that was week 7. Let me take a look at Mariota real quick. Jayden Daniels has been in and out so many times, I just can't keep track of what the deal is with him anymore. No, it looks like Jayden Daniels played most of that game, and then Mariota had to come in for some of that game. That was against Dallas that week. All right, let's go down here to Jesse Bates is another one of these tight ends, but Ertz is getting the most of the workload. Let's see, he's also questionable. We got Brooks here, Ja'Cory Brooks. Don't know much about him, and I don't really see much about these other guys that I like. We do see Chase Edmonds rising from the dead here. Let's see. This guy has some news. Outs was activated from injured reserve. Don't know much about him, but he's a running back, and that's already a mess. Velus Jones is on Seattle now, but he has not done anything. Treylon Burks is another guy that just joined Washington. Elevated from the Commanders practice squad to the active roster Saturday. So if you watched the other day, we had Greg Dulcich as one of these guys that I recommended on the show and ended up having a game necessary to be in the optimal. And he was at $600. Today, we get Treylon Burks on the Commanders with a game where they're struggling for weapons and Terry McLaurin is out. This will be interesting to keep tabs on. Treylon Burks at $200. We could be, again, first to the market on one of these sneaky under the radar guys. Dulcich, by the way, had 9% ownership in that main DraftKings tournament. So we got him really sneaky for $600 the other night. And Treylon Burks, this is why we do the dumpster dives here, so we can see those opportunities. But I do like him at 200 if we get any news on his potential playing time tonight. So let's go ahead and build this roster. Let's build a chalky one first. You could consider this, I guess, a small field or single entry lineup. So I'm putting in Njigba and Daniels, who have the highest floors. And let's get Samuel in there because we can go cheap. We got 3,600 for the rest of these dudes. And I want to get, probably want to get Ertz in there. Leaves us with 2,300. Let's say we get Burks in this one. Let's pretend that Burks is going to be part of the game plan tonight, and that leaves us with McNichols. We could get McNichols in there. The only problem is if we're going like 5-1 on the Commanders, but I don't necessarily hate that, but let's see what else we could do here. If we wanted to, let's say we take Samuels out, Deebo Samuel out, and we want to put in Darnold. Leaves us with 3,400. We could put in like Moore or Horton, Barner, plenty of opportunities there. This would probably be more of a, like a lean towards the cash game type of build, depending on Burks' status. We really got to keep an eye on this Burks situation. I did not read too much into Burks before jumping on here and taking a look at this player pool. So I'm going to do some more digging on Burks. So give me the 70 likes so I can put my thoughts in the comment section as we get closer to closer to lock. Let's clear this out. Let's put in Ertz in the captain. Let's keep our tight end roll going here. I'm going to put in Ertz. I want Daniels and Njigba. I want to get Samuel in there too. Leaves us with 3,700 per guy. Let's go down here and get, where's Barner at? Let's get McNichols in there before we get Barner, because I like his matchup a lot, and he looked good last week. It's going to leave us with 3,100, and we get Barner. Oh, this is perfect. Like, that's perfect for a build. We got a 4-2 build. We got a couple tight ends in this lineup. People be shied away from tight ends in general, and just a good build overall. I like this build. This is more of a Washington playing from behind. We got McNichols catching passes. We got Njigba in there. If we wanted to change this up a little bit and use a running back, let's say we want to put Charbonnet in there. I think if I wanted to put Charbonnet in there, I'd take Samuel out and go with like Luke McCaffrey or one of these kickers. And, I think that would get us to a good spot there. Let's clear this one out. Let's go with a Charbonnet and the captain. Let's say that they tee him up to score touchdowns in this one. You can see I'm just auto adding those guys because they got the highest floors for us. We try one without one of those guys. Let's get McNichols in here again. I mean, McNichols is one of my favorite plays on the slate in this one, just based on his matchup. Let's get Ertz in this one too. Get our tight end guy in there. We got 5,300 to play with there. We can get one of the kickers in here. When I have a running back in the captain, I tend to like to maybe pair him with a kicker or put a kicker on the other side, because a guy like Charbonnet to be the captain, it means that the wide receivers aren't scoring on either side. So, they're racking up PPR points though. So the correlation to me, I would put Matt Gay in here and say that maybe that Washington offense is failing a bit, but they're able to move the ball. And rather than go for it on fourth, knowing that their team is struggling a bit, they're going to put in the kicker and have the kicker do some damage. If we wanted to, let's say we put in Burks. Then we can get like Darnold in there if we want to, but or Samuel. Plenty of different ways that we can go. Burks here, though, I got to look into Burks' situation. It could be another Dulcich situation for us. I think Burks has been on the team for a couple weeks now. Not positive on how long he's been on the team, but it's definitely interesting. Burks was a highly, if you remember the Tennessee Titans situation, they traded A.J. Brown to the Eagles because they wanted to draft Treylon Burks with the pick that they got from the Eagles, and they thought that Burks would be a replacement for A.J. Brown. And, Coach Vrabel got super pissed when he found out about that trade. It was the ownership and the general manager going rogue in Tennessee, and they ended up firing Vrabel shortly after that. And now Vrabel is looking like a Coach of the Year candidate with the New England Patriots, while Tennessee just looks like absolute crap. So just kind of goes to show, the decision-making on some of this ownership of these teams. But Burks goes from a bad situation in Tennessee to improved situation in Washington. And if he can stay healthy, his big knock was his health. But if he can stay healthy, then at $200, we got ourselves an interesting situation with Treylon Burks tonight. So keep an eye on the comment section. Give me to 70 likes so I can put my favorite picks in there. And I'll add a nugget on Burks. I'll do a little bit more digging on Burks. And then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to get access to that secret weapon that's coming out within a week or so. Goal is to get it up to the public before Thanksgiving, and hopefully, like a couple weeks before that. So keep an eye on that, and I will see you guys. Going to try to put an underdog video up for the Sunday night game, but most likely I'll see you guys for the Monday showdown slate.